The Missisquoi River is approximately 80 miles long, 60 of which lies in the U.S. This video will feature the lower section, beginning in Enosburg, Vermont, and ending in Lake Champlain in Swanton, Vermont. Along the way, the westward trip will travel through dairy farm country, past major hydroelectric dams. Before you head out on this roughly 37-mile trip, it's highly recommended to first obtain the excellent Northern Forest Canoe Trail guidebook, as well as the map for this section of the trail. This video is meant only as a supplement to these publications and offers additional information about noteworthy things along the route, as well as describing periodic visual cues for important places along the way. The more one knows about this river before heading out, the greater the chance to develop an appreciation for the waterway and surrounding communities. Please note the various safety concerns along the Missisquoi before heading out. PFDs, or personal flotation devices, must be present on all boats, and it's recommended to wear them at all times. At various points along the trip, you may encounter rapids, some dangerous to inexperienced paddlers. Keep your map handy for quick access, and be sure you understand the various classes of rapids to determine if certain stretches of river are within your skill level. Don't leave garbage, and make sure to fasten your personal items so that they don't fall from your boat or blow away. You will be passing through agricultural land, and the water is not considered safe to drink, even with treatment. Be sure to bring enough water along with you to stay adequately hydrated. The Northern Forest Canoe Trail is a Vermont treasure and deserves respect. Take it upon yourself to act as a good steward of the river and surrounding lands. Much of the river corridor travels through private property. Limit accessing riverbanks to temporary stops or emergencies, and treat the land as you would your own. Don't trample sensitive plants, and don't damage or in any way alter historical or cultural artifacts. Lastly, the refuge is a safe haven for migratory and nesting birds, including rare species. Don't approach or harass wildlife here or anywhere on the trip. The distance from Enosburg Falls to Sheldon Springs is 11 miles, or about a day or so. If you make very good time, you can push it to the Highgate Falls campsite 19 miles later, but this will be an extremely hard day. When launching a boat below the dam, check the water level at Duffy Hill Road. If ledges immediately below are runnable, start here. If they're too low to allow running the ledges, cross to the north side of the river and use St. Albans Street for access. You should first scout out the set of rapids around the corner from the dam. They may require lining or walking your boat. The next 6 miles flow through a farmed valley. You'll see small tributaries left and right along this stretch. Tyler Branch is a small river on the left, originating in nearby Bakersfield. Shortly after the Goodsell Branch enters on the left a little later, you might see cars on Route 105 at River Right. This is the location of Route 236, which leads to Lake Carmi. This beautiful state park offers a great place to camp before heading out on this trip early in the morning. Shortly thereafter, an island in the middle of the channel signals the beginning of a wild stretch far from Route 105. Look for bald eagles perched in the towering pines along the banks. You might luck out and see other wildlife here as well. The North Sheldon Bridge carries Vermont Route 120 across the river. Depending on the time of year you make this trip, you may see barn swallows in nests under the bridge. A mile below the bridge, Abbey Rapids begins. This mile-long stretch of ledges and rock gardens is Class 2 at low water, approaching Class 3 at spring runoff. Scout out the rapids before entering the section. Near the bottom of these rapids is the Northern Forest Canoe Trail's Lussier campsite amidst the pines at River Left. The Black Creek Railroad Bridge appears a half mile below the rapids and is site to the old St. Johnsbury and Lamoille County Railroad. This rail was built to connect Portland with the Great Lakes, a project never realized. Ultimately, the short line became a subsidiary of the Boston and Maine and proved to be quite successful as a bridge route moving a wide variety of freight, including milk, coal, talc ore limestone, asbestos, forest products, grain, and pulpwood. Earlier, a covered bridge stood in the same location with an interesting footnote in the annals of the country. In 1864, a group of Confederate soldiers robbed a bank in St. Albans en route to Canada. As they rode across the bridge on horseback, they tried to burn it down in an attempt to escape justice. They successfully made it across the border, but it became known as the most northerly engagement of the Civil War. As you paddle under the bridge, be sure to check out the large osprey nest on top. Black Creek enters on the left below the bridge with the village of Sheldon upstream. Soon after, you'll see a second iron truss bridge carrying the 26-mile-long Missisquoi Valley Rail Trail, leading from Richford to St. Albans. If you fall in love with the area along your paddle, you might consider cycling it another time. The third bridge in a row is the 105 bridge heading to St. Albans. Water backed up behind the Sheldon Dam reaches here, and the atmosphere is pond-like and quiet. Keep an eye out for wildlife, especially waterfowl. Before the dam, the river divides. Be sure to be on the right side for a marked takeout. First settled by Smith Olmsted and known as Olmsted Falls, Sheldon Springs came into existence in the late 1700s. Olmsted built the first sawmill here in 1792, capable of cutting 15,000 feet of lumber a day. During the curative water craze between 1865 and 1870, Sheldon became the water resort of the United States. 6 identified mineral springs resulted in the construction of 11 hotels in Sheldon. Congress Hall, built in 1868, was 123 feet by 96 feet and 4 stories tall, opening to tourists in 1869. It was later burned to the ground by a disgruntled employee, and the business died soon thereafter. Sheldon became a mill town in 1894 when J.T. Shipley arrived and built the beginnings of what would become the Missisquoi Pulp and Paper Mill. Paper manufacturing began in 1914 with up to 250 men employed by the mill. The low dam was replaced by a high one and is now a hydroelectric dam owned by Enel Green Power North America, who has also installed solar panels able to generate 2,600 megawatts of electricity per year. As you take out and reach the road, head left, and you are met with a choice. You can take the paved utility road on the right for a 3/4-mile portage to enter below the dam River Right. If you continue down the road, you can turn right onto Mill Street and follow the gravel driveway of the electric substation for a half-mile portage. Access is 100 yards on the right. This way also offers a chance to quickly peel away to the gas station just up the road for food or water if needed. Both these portages offer put-ins at riffles and ledges which might be scratchy at low water levels. Below here you will enjoy a gentle flow for 5 miles until you reach East Highgate. By about 12,500 years ago, the continental glaciers retreated northward, enough such that the Atlantic Ocean entered and mixed with an ancient Lake Vermont, creating the Champlain Sea. In the general area of Highgate, a large sandy delta complex formed, and once the sea drained and lowered, the river continued to downcut through these ancient marine and lake sediments, leaving sandy beach deposits 500 feet above the valley floor. It was in this area that ancient scraping tools were discovered, used by late Paleo Indians about 10,000 to 9,000 years ago. The river quickens as you approach the East Highgate Bridge. Be sure to stick to the middle current. Below the bridge are a set of rapids which are scratchy in low water, but class 2 to 3 in higher flows. These are easily scouted and portaged if necessary. The East Highgate ledges are the last significant rapids on the lower Missisquoi. Riverbank Media began paddling this strip in East Richford, the day after the Ormond-Croft Hydro Rubber Dam and Highgate Falls deflated. The resulting shift in water levels was no greater than spring runoff, but it left the river levels extremely low with mucky conditions. Normally the 4 miles to the dam are quiet, much like the waters above Sheldon Dam. Now that it's been fixed, this will soon again be the case once the spring waters fill up behind the dam. The Great Falls of the Missisquoi once dropped 75 feet where the dam is now, but the river has been dammed in this location since the early 1800s. Early on, a sawmill, grist mill, foundry, and machine shops were powered by the water here. The present dam produces up to 12 megawatts for Swanton and nearby areas. The 1877 iron bridge just below the dam is a unique lenticular truss bridge and is a national civil engineering landmark. To portage this dam, take out on the right side and follow signs for about a half a mile crossing Vermont Route 207 into a gorge below. Here you'll find a campsite tucked into the woods where no fires are allowed and there is no bathroom. From here on it's flat water, passing islands and Hungerford Brook on your left. 4 miles below the dam, you'll pass under Highway I-89, with the Route 7 bridge just downriver. It's by this lower bridge where you'll find a fishing access area that serves as a good put-in and takeout. From here, it's another 3 miles to Swanton and the Swanton Dam. In 1979, the Agency of Transportation did an archaeological assessment of the area alongside John's Bridge, now the Route 7 Bridge. As a result, it was discovered that several families of native peoples had camped here to hunt and fish 8,000 years ago. This site was included in the National Register of Historic Places. This was the era known as the Archaic period. Unlike the preceding nomadic Paleo-Indians who came north 12,000 years ago to hunt caribou along the edge of the receding glaciers, those living in the Archaic moved in a defined territory on a seasonal basis, hunting, gathering wild plants, and fishing. About 3,000 years ago, another major change occurred when people began to cultivate plants. The woodland period was characterized by a more settled life, where, while continuing to hunt, fish, and collect wild plants, people increasingly depended on crops they grew as a source of food. Those who lived in this area were the Missisquoi band of the Western Abenaki, who called themselves the People of the Dawn. Swanton was the center of Abenaki history and culture, but their land stretched as far away as western Maine, northern Massachusetts, and southern Quebec. Much later, as white settlers came to the area, the Abenaki found themselves in a dangerous position between two European rivals, France and Great Britain. Though the Missisquoi Abenakis were the major inhabitants of Swanton, many Indians driven out of southern New England, such as the Sakoki, lived here too. All lived off the land and defended their territory, but eventually, in the face of a wave of white settlers and technical advantages, many moved north while others took to the surrounding wilderness. A short walk from the bridge up Grand Avenue will take you to the Abenaki Tribal Museum, home of the Sakoki band of the Abenaki Nation. Further downstream, you'll come to an old railroad bridge converted to a rail trail. Once completed, this trail will reach St. Johnsbury. At river left, a small set of stairs and short path lead to the Swanton Historical Railroad Depot Museum. This is a great resource to learn about the town's rich history and is definitely worth a stop. Lumbering, iron mining, cotton mills, and boat building were prominent industries early on, replaced later by limestone and marble cutting. Cutting of marble was done on the east side of the river, while the polishing and finishing was done on the west side. Formed in 1898, the Robin Hood Ammunition Company later became the International Explosives Company and ran 24 hours a day, employing 100 people. The company was awarded a contract by the Russian government to produce primers and exploders for cannon cartridges. Because of this contract, when the general manager was killed in an explosion on March 15, 1917, it was said that he was the first American casualty of World War I. There are no lines of buoys before the dam, so be careful and hug the shore as you look to take out River Right. Be sure to check out the excellent Northern Forest Canoe Trail kiosk before portaging 150 yards to the Marble Mill Park below the dam. Built in 1791, it was intended, as were many New England dams, to support a sawmill and gristmill. For 50 years since the passing of the last mill, environmentalists believe the Swanton Dam has been of almost no practical use. Once upon a time, walleye, lake sturgeon, and muskie would spawn up the Missisquoi as far east as Highgate Falls. Removing the dam would increase spawning habitat for Lake Champlain's migratory fish 99%, according to a 2008 Fish and Wildlife report. That argument has yet to convince town officials who view the dam as a valuable part of Swanton's history. It's a battle likely to continue for some time. 2.5 miles below the dam and just before you reach Dead Creek, you may spy the stone monument and totem pole along the right bank, celebrating the Abenaki culture. The plaque adjacent to the pole describes the symbols beautifully carved into the wood and their meaning to native peoples in the area. Beyond Dead Creek, on both sides of the river, is the Missisquoi National Wildlife Refuge, established in 1943. This 6,642-acre complex of wetlands and river channels is a wildlife paradise, with more than 200 species of birds migrating through the area in spring and fall. Nesting bald eagles, osprey, black terns, and the largest great blue heron colony in Vermont, numbering more than 300 nests, are present on the refuge. The Bird's Foot Delta is the only such delta in Vermont, and the featured landmark amidst the 5,000 acres of natural marshland. Please heed sign warnings that say where boats are not allowed to protect birds. Also, there are numerous sensitive nesting areas that are off limits to human foot traffic at these critical times. Please think of the wildlife and obey the signs here too. Passing by Louis Landing, you may very well be accompanied by many motorboats on their way out to Lake Champlain. Though they should be obeying slow wake speed, this is not often the case. Pay attention to avoid being swamped. Once you pass Mack's Bend, you'll find yourself paddling through prominent patches of arrowhead and pickerel weed. Later, towards the end, you'll encounter Vermont's largest silver maple floodplain forest and a mosaic of trees found nowhere else in Vermont. Once you reach Shad Island at the mouth of the river, you'll be amazed by the expanse of wild rice, bulrush, and wild celery. It is a timeless, peaceful place where the river flows invisibly into the great expanse of Lake Champlain. Take note that you will need to paddle back, often against headwinds, so plan your time accordingly. Be sure to check out our other videos on Vermont's waterways along the Northern Forest Canoe Trail and plan your next adventure.